This video was sponsored by Brilliant. Hey, happy Friday. This week Samsung made a wallet, Internet Explorer died but it kind of didn't, and Qualcomm burned people who burned $1,500 on a phone. Welcome to the Friday Checkout. Okay, this week my release highlights start with Intel, who oddly enough launched their first ever discrete GPU in China first and said that they'd gradually ship them more globally across the summer. Now this includes their entry-level Arc A380 desktop GPU and some mobile GPUs for laptops that they announced back in March, and in China the A380 costs about $150 including taxes. I guess that's reasonable for an entry-level card, and they will be inside PCs sold in China by the end of Q2 from the likes of Acer, Asus, Gigabyte, HP and MSI. Then Nothing keeps drip-feeding us information about their phone, showing us what the back looks like, including some fancy LEDs and a tiny bit of transparency, and they also held a pop-up event in Switzerland of all places. I kinda like the design even if it's very clearly iPhone inspired, but for a company that loudly claimed that everyone else except for them is doing no innovation, I'm still kind of waiting for a breakthrough reveal here that might never come. Anyway, perhaps more interesting is that CEO Carl Pei actually had an interview where he said that they made an initial order of 700,000 screens for their first batch, which is roughly in the same realm as the OnePlus One that sold about 1.5 million units in total, I think. It's good to hear some numbers. Next up, Huawei finally brought its e-ink MatePad paper to the market and sent me a review unit as well. This is a 10.3-inch e-ink tablet with an M Pencil to boot for writing, and it runs Harmony OS, so basically Android, meaning that unlike the Remarkable 2 that it copies pretty closely, you can actually put Android apps on this one as well. It feels much less polished than the Remarkable 2, and at 499 euros it's also much more expensive, but if you really want Android apps on an e-ink screen for some reason, now you can have them. Then DJI held a launch event featuring some new stuff. There is a smaller gimbal called the RS3 for quick setups, and it is set to perform 20% better than the previous model. It has a touchscreen and it is $549. There's a larger gimbal called the RS3 Pro that has all of that too, plus LiDAR focusing technology for making even manual lenses have autofocus and more, all for $869. And finally, DJI Transmission casts live video for remote monitoring with plenty of high-end features for $2,500. Also this week, Microsoft released a new Microsoft Defender cybersecurity app for Microsoft 365 personal and family subscribers across Windows as expected, but also across Mac, iOS and Android, where it's rather confusing. At least on Android it functions as an antivirus app of sorts, which is maybe something that some people want, but on Mac and iOS it mostly just seems to be a VPN app with some extra UI. Weird. And finally, Krafton, the makers of PUBG, released their supposedly hyper-realistic virtual human called Anna, designed and built in Unreal Engine with features like baby hairs and fluff on her skin. Cool. Okay, my first story of the week is going to be Samsung releasing a new app called Samsung Wallet, which is an app that combines multiple apps into one, and the question is, why? So the idea here is that Samsung is doing what Google did with Google Pay, which was to replace that with Google Wallet. Samsung Wallet is new and it will combine Samsung Pay and Samsung Pass into one all-inclusive app, which can therefore hold virtual cards, boarding passes, loyalty cards, and soon driver's licenses and student IDs. Plus, Samsung SmartThings will also integrate with it, so your Samsung Wallet can have digital home keys and digital car keys as well. Only some manufacturers are working with Samsung, like BMW with cars, but in theory that should expand. And finally, if you're still hodling your crypto, Samsung also announced that it will include their new blockchain wallet as well, which sounds useful, but there are no real details about how that will work, other than that it is for monitoring assets, and it seems tied to, quote, select exchanges, so that seems kinda weak. I guess this will be another Bixby where most people will find it to be useless bloatware, while others, especially in countries like Korea or China where Google apps are kinda weak or non-existent, might get good usage out of it. It's kind of a low-hanging fruit for Samsung to pick up, and I guess everyone is doing it, so why not? Okay, and my second story of the week is going to be Microsoft saying goodbye to Internet Explorer. Except it kind of isn't actually, and you can partially blame Japan for it, weirdly. So you might have seen tweets joking about the end of Internet Explorer, or headlines saying that Internet Explorer is now gone for good, and that is kind of true, but also not quite the full story. IE 11 will indeed be removed from regular Windows 10 PCs via software update after Microsoft had been begging everyone to switch to Edge for years. But it will remain available in some versions of Windows still, including some corporate editions of Windows 7, Windows 8.1, and something called the Windows 10 LTSC client, IoT, and server, where it will continue receiving security updates and technical support as well. And meanwhile, there's also a backup built into Edge, which the company calls IE Mode, that has full compatibility if you happen to stumble across a website that only supports IE. So it isn't completely retired, and that is because many corporate networks completely refuse to update their systems, and so they would kind of break if IE went away completely, and apparently there's a disproportionate amount of that happening in Japan. Reports are that Japanese businesses and government agencies are panicking, with a survey in March showing 49% of organizations still using IE for work, with apparently a lot of ActiveX plugins. 49%, that is every second organization. There are examples like Japan's pension service, which says that online applications must be viewed in Edge's Internet Explorer mode, and the government-backed mutual aid corporation for private schools, which still lists Internet Explorer as its only recommended browser. That is wild. This weird duality of being extremely high-tech and also somehow being stuck in the 90s is extremely typical and funny of Japan, and it really reminds me of the country that I live in, beautiful Germany, where people still ask me to fax things to them sometimes, and many times you can't pay with anything other than cash. Oh well. Okay, and my third story of the week is going to be the ridiculous situation surrounding Qualcomm. If you remember, Qualcomm CEO Cristiano Amon's big push for Qualcomm and its Snapdragon chips was to really push the Snapdragon brand and to start something called the Snapdragon Insiders, which was set to be Qualcomm's community that finally brings enthusiasts closer to the tech that is inside of their gadgets. The centerpiece of that plan was Qualcomm releasing its own phone in partnership with Asus for $1,500 called the smartphone for Snapdragon Insiders. The phone has very similar specs as the Asus ROG Phone 5 and is still on sale for an insane $1,500. And the problem with this pet project of the CEO is that it is extremely difficult to pull off, and they have completely dropped the ball on it. Owners of the phone are complaining on Reddit that despite the company explicitly promising 4 full years of regular security updates, the last one they got was from January, about 6 months ago, while the phone still doesn't even have Android 12 either, despite Android 13 being just around the corner as well. A community manager on Reddit replied that, quote, "The next security patch will be released on the 20th of June, and new ones will be released every 2 to 3 months after that," which is still far from regular or great, and neither Qualcomm nor Asus responded to questions about Android 12 or 13 rolling out, like, ever. Those might still come, of course. The company might just be unwilling to commit to any concrete dates. But man, this smells a lot like a CEO who had a pet project. It told his employees to go build a community for me, and then kind of just got bored and gave up and didn't want to spend the resources on it. Manufacturers have long been blaming Qualcomm as one of the main barriers to older phones getting Android updates anyway, as it offers next to zero support for its chipsets for updating Android for older devices, and they partnered with Asus, which itself is kind of slow at releasing updates as well, while nobody has really been able to explain what the point of the Snapdragon Insider community is supposed to be in the first place. And it's not like Qualcomm wouldn't have the money either. They had an incredibly profitable last few quarters, and they also just had a $1 billion win in Europe's courts, managing to reverse an antitrust decision handed down against them in 2018, where the EU complained that Qualcomm paid Apple billions of dollars from 2011 to 2016 to use only its wireless chips in iPhones and iPads in order to mainly block competitors like Intel. But still, there seems to be a shortage of high-quality engineers over at Qualcomm, as there seems to be basically everywhere, which really highlights how learning to become an engineer is one of the best ways to get ahead in life. And there's no better place to do that than with my sponsor, Brilliant. Computer science, scientific thinking, and other engineering topics are all courses that Brilliant offers, with each one crafted by award-winning teachers, researchers, and professionals, and they cover topics from beginner to advanced levels. But the thing that makes Brilliant uniquely good is the interactive style of structured teaching that engages you. Courses help you learn by breaking down a complicated concept into easier to grasp chunks, and then you do an exercise after each one so you practice what was just explained, explained right away. Instead of long texts with nothing to guide you, you're able to apply what you've just learned and understand it better as you move through. This process means that everything just goes deeper into your brain, which is exactly what builds up competency. This way you can get better at your job, or you can get a new job altogether and show Qualcomm how it's done, or just sharpen your own skills. Signing up is free, and the first 200 people who sign up using brilliant.org/TFC will also get 20% off their annual premium subscription. So check them out, happy learning, and I'll see you next week.